She walked into the building on her first day, and within 10 minutes the entire office went silent. No one knew her, no one trusted her, but somehow, she was already accessing files that even senior managers weren't supposed to see. By the end of the week, HR wanted her fired, IT wanted her locked out, and the CEO had one terrifying question. How does a new hire know everything about this company? Unless she was never really a stranger at all. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, revealing the 18th floor of Hale Dynamics, a glass-walled corporate empire overlooking the city skyline. The air inside felt colder than outside, not from temperature, but from the silence of people who were too busy watching each other to speak. Emma Carter stepped out. She was a 28-year-old woman with a calm, almost unreadable expression. Her dark brown hair was neatly tied back, not to impress, but to stay out of her way. She wore a simple black blazer over a white blouse, nothing flashy, yet everything about her felt precise, like she had already planned every second of her presence here. Her eyes were sharp, observant, and unsettlingly focused, as if she was constantly reading something invisible to others. No one greeted her. At the far end of the office, Linda Morgan, head of HR, watched from behind a glass wall. Linda was 45, with short blonde hair, perfectly styled and rigid like her personality. She had spent 20 years in corporate HR and trusted policies more than people. Her eyes narrowed as she reviewed Emma's file again on her tablet. "Too clean," she muttered. "No gaps, no mistakes. That's not normal." Meanwhile, Emma calmly walked toward her assigned desk without asking for directions. She already knew where it was. That detail alone made a few employees exchange uneasy glances. One of them was Jake Thompson, a 34-year-old product manager. He was tall, slightly athletic, with messy brown hair and a habit of rolling his sleeves up when stressed. Jake was known for being sharp but skeptical, someone who trusted logic more than intuition. However, something about Emma disrupted that balance. He watched her not with judgment but curiosity. "How does she know where to go?" he whispered to a colleague. Emma sat down, opened her laptop, and within minutes began navigating the internal system. No hesitation, no trial and error. It was as if she had memorized the architecture of the company itself. In IT security, alerts immediately flashed on multiple screens. "Who gave her access to the financial archive?" one technician asked, confused. "No one did," another replied. "She's bypassing the entry layer somehow, but it's not hacking. It looks like authorized behavior." At the same time, deep inside the building, Richard Hale, the CEO, a man in his early 50s with silver-streaked hair and tired, sunken eyes, was reviewing quarterly losses. Years of pressure had carved permanent tension into his face. When his assistant informed him about the new hire anomaly, he didn't react immediately. Instead, he simply asked, "What is her name again?" "Emma Carter." That name made him pause for exactly 2 seconds. Back on the office floor, Emma finally looked up from her screen. For a brief moment, her expression softened, not with fear, but with recognition. As if she was not entering a new company, but returning to something unfinished. And in that moment, Jake realized something unsettling. She wasn't just different. She didn't feel like a newcomer at all. Emma's first real test at Hale Dynamics came faster than anyone expected. A crisis alert hit the internal dashboard at 9:12 a.m. The company's flagship client system, worth nearly $18 million annually, was showing irregular transaction delays. Senior managers gathered in the glass conference room, tension rising as no one could explain the root cause. Emma stood quietly in the back, arms folded, her expression calm but distant, as if she had already seen this problem before. Michael Grant, the operations director, a heavy-set man in his late 40s with thinning gray hair and a habit of wiping sweat from his forehead even in cold rooms, dismissed her presence immediately. He was practical, impatient, and disliked new hires interfering in real problems. But when the proposed solutions from senior engineers began failing, Emma finally spoke. Her voice was soft but precise. "You're routing legacy data through the updated API layer. It will always cause latency spikes under high load. Revert the middleware bridge, isolate the financial sync thread, and the system will stabilize in under 3 minutes." The room went silent. Even IT lead Ryan Collins, a 29-year-old man with sharp facial features, dark eyes, always scanning multiple screens, and a reputation for paranoia about system breaches, paused mid-typing. Ryan was extremely technical, socially distant, and had once suffered a major project failure that made him distrust anyone outside his department. He looked at Emma with suspicion, not admiration. "How do you even know about that layer?" he asked. Emma did not answer. She simply returned to her seat. But Ryan noticed something alarming. She had accessed a restricted architecture file labeled Project Black Vault, a directory even he needed admin escalation to view. Meanwhile, in a separate office on the same floor, Victoria Hale, the chief financial officer, a tall woman in her early 50s with silver blonde hair pulled into a tight bun and an intimidating posture that made employees nervous when she walked by, was reviewing system logs. Victoria was disciplined, controlling, and known for surviving multiple corporate restructures. She believed trust was a weakness in business. As she scanned the access history, her expression hardened. "This user has accessed hidden financial routing files twice in 1 hour," she said coldly to her assistant. "I want continuous tracking on her workstation. I don't care who she is." Back in the open office, Jake Thompson observed Emma again. Unlike others, he wasn't afraid, just confused. She wasn't guessing. She wasn't experimenting. It felt like she was correcting something already broken. When the system finally stabilized exactly as she predicted, whispers spread across the floor. IT confirmed the fix matched a pre-approved internal protocol that had never been publicly released. Ryan leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. "That protocol was archived after the founder left the company," he muttered. Across the room, Emma briefly looked toward the glass walls of the executive floor above. For a split second, her expression changed. Not confidence, not fear, but recognition mixed with something heavier, like memory. And for the first time, Hale Dynamics didn't feel like a workplace to her. It felt like a place waiting to be exposed. The atmosphere inside Hale Dynamics changed within 24 hours after Emma Carter's unusual performance in the system recovery incident. What once was curiosity turned into silent suspicion. By morning, an internal security flag had been attached to her employee profile. Unverified behavioral risk, under review. In a private HR office on the 22nd floor, Olivia Hayes was assigned to the case. Olivia was a 37-year-old HR compliance specialist, tall and sharply built with straight auburn hair always tied in a strict bun. Her cold, controlled voice matched her personality. Years ago, she had wrongly cleared a fraudulent employee who later caused a legal scandal, and since then she trusted data over human intuition. She opened Emma's file again, scanning every detail with extreme caution. "Too consistent. Too perfect," Olivia whispered. "No one enters a company like this without leaving traces." Meanwhile, IT monitoring room lights flickered across multiple screens. Ryan Collins, 29, thin with sharp cheekbones and tired dark eyes, sat alone analyzing system logs. Ryan was known for being brilliant but socially withdrawn, shaped by a past cybersecurity failure that still haunted him. He zoomed into Emma's access history again. "She's not hacking anything," Ryan muttered. "She's navigating like she already owns the system." At the executive level, CFO Victoria Hale, a woman in her early 50s with silver blonde hair and a strict black suit that never seemed to wrinkle, ordered a full silent surveillance protocol. Victoria had survived multiple corporate crises and believed trust was a liability in business. She spoke coldly to her assistant. "Track every keystroke. I want 0 visibility gaps. If she moves, I know." Down in the open workspace, Emma continued working calmly, unaffected by the growing tension around her. She never asked unnecessary questions, never interacted more than needed, yet her presence felt heavier each day. At lunchtime, Jake Thompson, a 34-year-old product manager with a slightly rugged build, rolled-up sleeves, and a habit of observing before speaking, noticed employees whispering about Emma. Unlike others, Jake didn't see danger. He saw logic that didn't yet make sense. "If she was a spy," Jake said quietly, "she wouldn't fix problems that make the company stronger." Olivia, standing near the glass corridor, overheard this and immediately added a note to her report. External employee showing bias toward subject. In IT, Ryan discovered something that froze him for a moment. Emma's system interaction pattern matched an old administrator-level protocol linked to the company's original founder infrastructure, something supposedly deleted years ago. That account shouldn't exist, Ryan said, staring at the screen in disbelief. At the end of the day, Olivia followed Emma from a distance as she left the building. Emma walked alone through the city lights, her face unreadable. But as she paused near the company's glass exterior, she looked up at the Hale Dynamics tower for a brief second. Her expression was not fear, it was recognition. And Olivia quietly realized something that she didn't include in her report. This wasn't an investigation into a spy. It was an investigation into someone who might already belong there. The tension inside Hale Dynamics reached a new phase the following night when most employees had already left the building. Only the emergency lights illuminated the silent corridors, casting long shadows across empty desks. Emma Carter returned alone, using her temporary access badge, her expression unchanged, but her steps more deliberate than usual. She wasn't here to work. She was here to find something that had been buried for years. In the basement level of the building, a restricted archive room existed, officially labeled as Legacy Infrastructure Storage. Most employees didn't even know it existed. The door required outdated credentials, the kind no modern system should accept anymore. Yet when Emma placed her access card against the scanner, the system blinked green immediately. Inside the room, rows of old servers hummed softly, like machines still remembering a forgotten past. Emma walked directly to an isolated terminal. She was calm, but her eyes carried weight, like she was searching for something she had lost a long time ago. At that moment, a voice came from behind. "You shouldn't be here, unless you already know what you're looking for." Emma turned slowly. A man stood near the doorway. He was Martin Hale, a 62-year-old senior IT engineer who had been with the company since its earliest days. Martin was slightly hunched, with gray hair, a wrinkled face marked by years of sleepless nights, and tired but intelligent eyes. He wore an old company ID badge that no longer matched current security standards. Unlike the younger engineers, Martin was quiet, cautious, and deeply loyal to the original vision of Hale Dynamics. However, something in his voice softened when he saw Emma more clearly. "You look exactly like her," Martin said slowly. Emma didn't respond immediately. Martin stepped closer, studying her face. "Elena Carter, the founder's daughter. I haven't said that name out loud in years." For the first time, Emma's calm expression flickered slightly, not surprise but confirmation. Martin lowered his voice. "After your father was pushed out, most of his systems were erased, but not everything was deleted. Some of us kept fragments alive." Meanwhile, upstairs, Ryan Collins was still in the IT monitoring room. The 29-year-old engineer, with sharp eyes and restless fingers constantly switching between screens, noticed an unusual data spike from the basement level. His instincts tightened. Ryan had always been paranoid after a past breach had cost him his reputation, making him extremely sensitive to anomalies. "That's not a normal access pattern," he muttered. "Someone is inside the legacy cluster." He almost escalated it to security, but hesitated. Something about the pattern felt intentional, controlled, like permission had already been granted from a higher layer he couldn't see. Back in the basement, Martin led Emma to an older terminal hidden behind a false server panel. He typed slowly, bypassing outdated encryption with a level of familiarity that came only from years of secrecy. "If you're really here for what I think you are," Martin said quietly, "then you need to see what was left behind." The screen flickered. A hidden directory appeared. Carter_root. Emma stared at it for a long moment. For the first time since entering the company, her composure softened, not with doubt, but with memory. "I didn't think it would still exist," she whispered. Martin nodded. "Some truths don't get deleted, they just wait." And deep inside the system, something long dormant began to respond. The discovery of the hidden legacy system changed everything for Emma Carter. What began as a quiet search in the basement had now escalated into something far more dangerous, something that extended beyond old technology and into the financial core of Hale Dynamics. That night, Emma stayed inside the restricted archive longer than usual, tracing encrypted data trails through the cartographer. Each layer she unlocked revealed fragmented financial records that didn't match any official reports. She noticed it first in silence: inconsistencies in quarterly balance sheets dating back 5 years, revenue numbers that had been subtly inflated, operational costs artificially shifted, and investor reports quietly adjusted after approval signatures. It wasn't random corruption, it was systematic. In a glass-walled executive office upstairs, Victoria Hale, the CFO, remained unaware that her digital footprint was being examined in reverse. Victoria, a woman in her early 50s with sharp, controlled posture, silver blonde hair always tied tightly, and eyes that never revealed emotion, had built her career on precision and dominance. She believed every company mistake was a weakness to be eliminated. Years of surviving mergers had made her ruthless and highly defensive. But now she was watching Emma more closely than ever. "She's accessing historical financial layers again," Victoria said coldly to her assistant. "This is no longer curiosity, it's targeted extraction." She immediately initiated a silent countermeasure, an internal trap disguised as a corrupted file labeled Legacy Audit Breakdown. If Emma accessed it, her system privileges would be automatically flagged for termination review. Down on the operational floor, Jake Thompson began noticing unusual system behavior. Jake, 34, with a slightly rugged appearance, tired but intelligent eyes, and a habit of leaning back while thinking instead of reacting immediately, was reviewing project logs when he accidentally stumbled upon a deleted file recovery queue. "What the hell?" he muttered. A partially restored file flickered on his screen. Financial_reconstruction_2019-2024, deleted source, CFO layer. Jake wasn't an executive. He wasn't supposed to see anything like this. But curiosity outweighed protocol. As he dug deeper, he realized someone had intentionally erased audit trails from multiple fiscal cycles. At that moment, Ryan Collins entered the IT monitoring room. Ryan, 29, sharp-featured, socially withdrawn, and always tense from past system failures, immediately noticed Jake's unauthorized access. "You shouldn't be in that directory," Ryan said sharply. "I didn't go looking for it," Jake replied. "It found me." Ryan leaned closer to the screen. His expression tightened as he recognized metadata patterns. "This isn't normal deletion, this is structured cleanup. Someone inside finance has been rewriting history." Meanwhile, Emma unknowingly triggered Victoria's trap file while analyzing cross-referenced audit logs. For a split second, a warning alert flashed across her terminal. But instead of locking her out, the system responded differently, like it recognized her presence. The alert disappeared. Emma paused. "That shouldn't have happened," she whispered. Back on the executive floor, Victoria froze when she saw the system log. "Why didn't it trigger?" she asked quietly. For the first time, her controlled expression showed unease. In the cafeteria later that evening, Jake approached Emma directly. He wasn't afraid anymore, only certain that something was deeply wrong. "I saw something in the system," Jake said. "Deleted financial records. And your name wasn't in them, but it feels like you're connected to them somehow." Emma looked at him for a long moment, then calmly replied, "Some files were never meant to be seen by people who currently run this company." Jake didn't fully understand what she meant, but for the first time he stopped doubting her. And somewhere above them, Victoria Hale realized the biggest threat was no longer access, but exposure. The situation at Hale Dynamics escalated into full containment mode. Early that morning, an emergency executive meeting was held behind closed doors on the 30th floor. The atmosphere was heavy, with no usual corporate politeness, only urgency and fear. At the center of the discussion was Emma Carter. Richard Hale, the CEO, a 52-year-old man with silver-streaked hair, deep eye bags from years of pressure, and a controlled but increasingly unstable temperament, sat at the head of the table. Normally composed, today he looked visibly unsettled. "We are no longer dealing with a data issue," he said. "We are dealing with a system-level breach of unknown origin." Beside him, Victoria Hale, the CFO, maintained her rigid posture. Her sharp blonde hair was tied tightly, and her cold blue eyes scanned every executive in the room like she was measuring loyalty instead of opinions. "She has accessed financial layers no employee should ever reach. This is not coincidence anymore, it's infiltration." After a brief, tense debate, the decision was made. Emma Carter must be terminated immediately, effective without standard HR procedure. Down in HR operations, Olivia Hayes, 37, tall with auburn hair pulled into a strict bun and an expression that rarely changed, received the order. Olivia was known for her precision and emotional detachment, shaped by a past legal HR failure that destroyed her confidence in human judgment. But this time, even she hesitated. "We need documentation," Olivia said cautiously. "Create it," Victoria replied coldly over the call. "We don't have time for ethics delays." Olivia paused for a moment before quietly beginning to fabricate a performance violation record. It was the first time in years she felt uncomfortable executing an order. Meanwhile, in the basement archive, Emma continued working with Martin Hale. Martin, the 62-year-old senior IT engineer with gray hair, tired eyes, and a slow but deliberate way of speaking, had become her only internal ally. Despite his age and frail posture, he carried decades of knowledge about the company's original systems. But today, Martin looked more anxious than usual. "They noticed the access spike," he said quietly. "They know someone is inside the legacy layer." Emma didn't stop typing. "Then we don't have much time." Suddenly, Martin's terminal flashed red. A security override command had been issued from executive level, targeting his credentials. "They're locking me out," he muttered. "If I don't comply, they'll terminate my access permanently, or worse." For the first time, Emma looked directly at him. "You can walk away." Martin gave a faint, tired smile. "I walked away from this company once. I know what happens when truth is left buried." Despite the risk, Martin manually bypassed the restriction protocol and extracted a deeper dataset from the Carter root. A hidden file began decrypting slowly on the screen. At that same moment, Ryan Collins, 29, lean with sharp facial features and restless eyes trained by years of cybersecurity paranoia, detected an unauthorized escalation from the basement level. His instincts immediately screamed escalation protocol, but something stopped him. "This pattern, it's not an attack," Ryan whispered. "It's reconstruction." On the main floor, Jake Thompson noticed security personnel moving unusually fast through the office. Jake, 34, slightly rugged, calm but observant, began to realize something serious was happening. He approached Ryan's station. "They're trying to remove her, aren't they?" Jake asked. Ryan didn't answer immediately. Then he said quietly, "It's already happening, but I don't think she's the problem." Upstairs, Olivia finished the fabricated HR file, her hands slightly tense for the first time in years. She looked at the screen and realized what she had done. And deep inside the system, Emma finally saw the decrypted file fully open. Project Origin, Carter Foundation Records. She stared at it without blinking, because now, everything was no longer about suspicion. It was about truth being forced into the open. The night Hale Dynamics finally broke was not marked by explosions or alarms, but by silence turning into irreversible exposure. Inside the underground legacy server room, Emma Carter stood before the fully decrypted Project Origin file, her expression steady but her eyes carrying the weight of long-buried history. The system Martin had helped unlock was no longer just data, it was evidence. Martin Hale, the 62-year-old veteran IT engineer with a frail posture, gray hair, and hands slightly shaking from years of exhaustion, watched quietly beside her. He had spent decades protecting fragments of the founder's legacy, but tonight felt different. "Once this goes live," he said softly, "there's no going back." Emma replied, "There was never a way back." Above them, on the 18th floor, chaos was building. Victoria Hale, the CFO, a sharply dressed woman in her early 50s with ice blonde hair pulled into a tight bun and an expression carved from years of corporate survival, had entered full containment mode. Her voice cut through the executive channel. "Shut down external sync. Block all internal data propagation. Now!" But it was already too late. In the IT control room, Ryan Collins, 29, lean, sharp-faced, and constantly tense from years of cybersecurity trauma, stared at cascading system logs. His fingers moved rapidly across the keyboard, trying to isolate Emma's activity. But for the first time in his career, he realized something terrifying. He wasn't stopping an intrusion. He was watching a system restore itself. "This isn't code manipulation," Ryan whispered. "It's historical reconstruction at root level." At the same time, Jake Thompson, 34, slightly rugged with rolled sleeves and a calm but determined expression, made a decision that shocked even himself. He activated a hidden internal streaming channel usually reserved for executive meetings. It wasn't authorized, but he didn't care anymore. "If they want to erase her," Jake muttered, "then everyone should see why." On his screen, he began live streaming the emergency executive meeting happening upstairs. Inside the glass-walled conference room, executives were in panic. Documents flickered on shared displays as Emma's data extraction began leaking into the corporate network. Olivia Hayes, 37, HR compliance officer with auburn hair tightly pinned and a face normally controlled by procedure, stared at the fabricated HR termination file she had created earlier. For the first time, she felt its weight as something real and dangerous. Meanwhile, Emma initiated the final sequence. Her access was no longer restricted. The system recognized her at a foundational level, bypassing all executive locks as if she were part of its origin structure. "Data stream unlocked," Martin said quietly. Emma looked at the screen. "Begin broadcast." Across the building, every internal monitor suddenly flickered. And then it happened. The project origin file went public inside Hale Dynamics. Financial manipulations spanning years, hidden board decisions, deleted founder records, internal restructuring schemes that removed the original creator of the company from ownership. Victoria reacted instantly. "Cut the network," she shouted. "Kill all internal feeds." But Ryan froze for a second before responding. "It's already distributed. You can't pull it back." In desperation, Victoria tried to inject a system override virus into the broadcast layer. But something unexpected stopped her command. An old encryption barrier embedded deep in the system architecture. A legacy protection layer, built by the founder. Emma finally stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but carried authority no one had ever heard from her before. "This company was never yours to control." The entire building fell silent as the truth stabilized across every screen. And for the first time, Hale Dynamics didn't belong to the executives anymore. It belonged to its origin. The morning after the revelation, Hale Dynamics was no longer the same company. The glass towers still stood, but inside everything had shifted. Power, authority, and truth itself. Employees gathered silently in the main atrium, watching the internal screens that now displayed only one name at the top of the system hierarchy. Carter Authority Restored. Emma Carter stood on the executive floor balcony, overlooking the entire company she had just reclaimed. She was no longer dressed like an employee. Her black blazer was replaced with a structured dark coat, and her posture carried a quiet authority that didn't need announcement. Her expression remained calm, but this time it was not uncertainty, it was finality. Behind her stood Richard Hale, the 52-year-old former CEO, once powerful but now visibly drained. His silver-streaked hair looked disordered, and his confident posture had collapsed into something heavier. He no longer argued. The federal investigation had already been triggered after the Project Origin files were broadcast company-wide, exposing years of financial manipulation and illegal restructuring. At his side, Victoria Hale, the CFO, once sharp and controlled with her rigid blonde bun and cold precision, now stood in silence. For the first time, her eyes showed something unfamiliar: loss. She had built her identity on control, but control had disappeared overnight. Federal agents had already entered the building earlier that morning. Both Richard and Victoria were escorted out for formal investigation into corporate fraud, data suppression, and unlawful asset control. Down in the main hall, employees remained frozen as Emma descended the central staircase. Every step she took felt like a reset of the company's history. Waiting for her at the base was Jake Thompson, now visibly different. Jake, 34, slightly rugged with rolled sleeves now replaced by a formal executive suit, had an expression of disbelief mixed with responsibility. His transformation had begun the moment he chose to live stream the truth. That single action had positioned him as a key witness in the internal exposure. "You really did it," Jake said quietly. Emma looked at him. "We did it." Within days, the board officially transferred interim control of Hale Dynamics to Emma Carter under emergency restructuring protocols embedded in the original founder's charter. In a smaller room nearby, Martin Hale, the 62-year-old senior IT engineer with gray hair, worn hands, and a humble posture shaped by decades of loyalty to the company's origins, was being recognized by the remaining technical staff. For years, he had quietly preserved fragments of the founder's legacy system. A formal announcement was made. Martin Hale is hereby honored as the guardian of the founder's digital legacy. Martin simply lowered his head. "I didn't protect the company," he said softly. "I just refused to let it forget itself." Emma later met with Jake in the restored executive office. The room now displayed the original Carter Dynamics emblem, not the modified Hale branding. Large glass windows reflected the city's skyline, but the atmosphere inside felt lighter, almost rebuilt. "What happens next?" Jake asked. Emma paused for a moment. "We rebuild it properly. No hidden layers, no buried truth, everything visible." For the first time, the company didn't feel like a battlefield of secrets, but a structure being reset from its foundation. Outside, the news cycle had already picked up the story. Corporate fraud, sudden leadership overhaul, and the return of a founder's legacy through his daughter. But inside Hale Dynamics, there was no longer panic, only a new beginning. Emma stood alone at the window one last time that day. Her reflection blended with the skyline, and for the first time since she arrived, she no longer looked like someone returning. She looked like someone who had finally arrived. And now it's over. Emma Carter didn't just return to Hale Dynamics, she changed it forever. But tell me, if you were Emma, would you expose the truth and risk thousands of jobs? Or stay silent to protect the company? Was Jake a hero for revealing everything? Or a traitor who broke trust? And Martin, did he protect the truth? Or hide corruption too long? One story, no easy answers. What would you choose? Comment below. I want to hear your opinion. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to like and subscribe for more shocking office drama stories.